Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the end of the presidency press conference of German Ambassador Christoph Heusgen. We're happy to have you both virtually and in person here. The ambassador will give a brief introduction on the month of July, our presidency, and then thereafter we're going to have questions and answers. You can both physically raise your hand and also communicate via the chat or WhatsApp. I try to accommodate as much as I can. We have a little bit limited time. We need to be out the latest, I think, in 45 minutes, but I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. It's good to be here. Time flies. It's like yesterday that I remember having sat in this chamber here. At that time, I was sitting in front of an empty room, and it's so good to see you in person here. The last month has been extremely intensive. I actually had some complaints by colleagues. Well, why do you have to have so many debates, etc.? And I told colleagues, this is not, to make you work hard or whatever, but our program reflected the German ambition to have the UN work, to have multilateralism work, to have the rules-based international order work, and for this, the UN is at its center, and the Security Council is in its center. So for us, it was the respect for the UN and the ambitions that we have for the Security Council that we had this very intensive program. As I told you 4 weeks ago, we entered the month of July with Germany holding the chairmanship of the presidency of the Security Council, but at the same time also the presidency of the European Union. And for the European Union, it has also been a very intensive month. And we saw across the Atlantic that the European Union, in very difficult times, was able to adopt a program of solidarity in the wake of in connection with the COVID crisis, with a huge solidarity fund that is very, very important for the European Union. Why do I say this? Because this also reflects the German intent to have these international organizations, to have the European Union work, and also to come now to the United Nations to have the United Nations work. And here in the Security Council, we also had our European impact. We had the so-called European Spring with the 3 presidencies of Estonia, France and Germany going hand in hand, and we worked extremely closely with the 3 colleagues, and I think the symbol of this cooperation was to a certain degree the COVID-19 resolution that was started during the Estonian presidency, where Estonia and Germany also gave an impulse when it seemed to be stuck, and then we were very happy that the French-Tunisian proposal was then adopted on the first day of the German presidency. And this was, for us, very important. It was also a signal to the outside that the UN works, and that even if it takes long, it can arrive at compromise which helps the organization. So this was very important to us. The second or the third thing I told you when we were sitting here, that we had the intention to come back to the council, because again, this was not just to make the secretariat sweat or to run any risks, but for us, diplomacy has to do something with person-to-person contact. It has to do with talks, with discussions, with negotiations, which you cannot do virtually. You can do a lot virtually, but you cannot have these kind of contacts. And for us to come back here during the month of July was first a signal to the outside world. The United Nations is working. They are in place there, meeting around the table. And then it was, of course, then, as I said, the return to working methods that we think are best suited to arrive at results. We had not only these two meetings here, which you followed, one on Colombia, the other one on Yemen, as the most important issues. We also started the presidency with actually a in-person breakfast in the German house, where we had the members to agree and to discuss the program of the month. And then we had the day before yesterday a luncheon again in the German house with social distancing, but to say farewell on the one hand to our colleague from Belgium, but again to allow for this person-to-person contact. And during the month we had also casual meeting out at the residency of the Russian ambassador. And in times where the Security Council on some issues is blocked, nevertheless, it's very important that you have a good relationship, a personal relationship, which allows you in difficult times to, in the end, come to conclusion and find compromise. So this is a bit about the circumstances. On substance, you, and thank you very much for this, you were following our program very closely. We looked on the one hand, of course, at the current crises from Syria to Yemen to Libya. We had several high-level events on these issues. I want to highlight Libya in particular, because this is a country where or a crisis where Germany has been very involved, starting with the Berlin conference in January. The results of the Berlin conference were then endorsed by Security Council Resolution 2510, and during our presidency we had then an open discussion with our foreign minister and with a lot of foreign ministers from Security Council members from neighboring countries to drive the file forward to get Berlin implemented with the different on the different tracks. And we also had a Libya Sanctions Committee meeting. Germany shares the Sanctions Committee on Libya, and that the sanctions have been not really implemented, and the reports of the panel very clearly say that it has not been implemented, and we have the obligations as the presidency to actually hold these sanctions committees meetings, so to actually again impress on those countries that violate these sanctions to go by the rules. So in addition to this, we had the COVID-19 health and security meeting at the beginning of the month. We had then a meeting on peacekeeping and human rights. We had a high-level meeting on sexual violence in conflict. We had a meeting then on climate change and security. I mentioned this again to again underline Germany's ambition or Germany's strategy with regard to security issues, to really start from or highlight a comprehensive view of security, to not only look at hot conflicts, but to look at conflict prevention, to look at drivers of conflict, and look at issues, as I said, from human rights to climate change to health to sexual violence in conflict. We were very happy here in New York that it was not only the team here that was driving this, and I would like to use this occasion also to express my gratitude for my own team here, who have, under very difficult circumstances, worked very hard, but we got the support from Berlin. We had our Foreign Minister Maas, participate in 3 open debates. We had our defense minister participate in peacekeeping and human rights. We had our state minister Niels Annen on Syria, state minister Michael Roth on the 25th anniversary of the massacre in Srebrenica. Today still we had the third state minister Michael Müntefering in Security Council and ICANN, the civil society committee working, and we had our state secretary Berger on the Middle East peace process. So the participation of Berlin was also such that this is nothing New York, but this is something that is driven by the whole federal government. What I also wanted to underline, and I come back to our comprehensive view of security, we were driven a lot in all these cases, and you will remember the very tough controversy and conflict, and in the end solution we had on the cross-border resolution in Syria. We look at the situation on the ground. We look at how do conflicts affect the people on the ground, and therefore for us it was very important that the Security Council gets a direct view and a direct impression on what the situation actually is, and therefore we are, I must say, a bit proud that we had a record number of briefers, a record number of civil society briefers during our presidency. We had 15 civil society briefers and 10 women, and of these 15, and we had these from Myanmar to Syria to Afghanistan to West Africa, and we had people on the ground. And I find it always, I mean, you sometimes follow this, of course, virtually, or I hope. I find it very impressive when you have people on the ground telling you how the situation is, and we always hope that this also impresses then members of the Security Council and motivate them actually to do everything to come to a solution to the many conflicts that we have on the agenda. With this, let me finish my introduction, and I'm open for questions.
Thanks, Ambassador. Traditionally, the first question goes to the representative of ANCA. Valeria's stool is empty. She's in Italy, and there's a screen. But however, I know that Nabil will fill in for her. So Nabil Abissab, you have the first question, please. And I'm going to take both virtual and physical questions. Nabil.
Okay, thank you. And congratulations, Mr. Ambassador. On behalf of ANCA, we have to thank you for the great communication during your presidency, and we hope that all council members keep us informed under the presidencies, especially during this time when everyone is working remotely. My question is about UNIFIL. We expect the council to renew the mandate in the coming months. Germany is one of the CCC countries, and we know that the United States, for example, is pushing for more access in southern Lebanon. Some other member states have different position. So what's Germany's position?
UNIFIL is for us a very important mission. It is one of two missions where Germany is participating with a considerable number. We have been involved, had the leadership, for the command of the maritime component of UNIFIL since 2006. For us, the presence of UNIFIL in Lebanon, in a country that is torn, a country that is, you know the situation very well. We believe that UNIFIL is a stabilizing mission, a stabilizing operation, which we need to preserve. We have a mandate for UNIFIL, and I know that there are a number of countries that are not happy with the mandate, that they want UNIFIL to play a more proactive role. But we are here in a rules-based organization. There is a clear mandate. The mandate allows certain things and doesn't allow for others. So While, in ideal world, I would think, well, let's look at all the mandates worldwide and see what more can be done. But we have to be realistic. It's the result of negotiations. It's the result what is feasible. And therefore, for us, the continuation of the presence of UNIFIL in the ground, in particular, also not only the maritime part, but also in the south of Lebanon, is key.
If you allow, I will mix from the chat and the floor. So the next one would be James Bass. James.
Thank you, Ambassador. You mentioned this in your introduction, but I'd like to know a little bit more about Libya, because for Germany, it clearly has been one of your priorities this year with the Berlin summit that took place. And yet since then, we've not really had very much progress. We may well have some sort of new fighting insert on the horizon, and even the UN operation in Libya, you don't seem to have agreement on that and on a new head of that operation. So tell me your views on Libya and how frustrated you are that this big priority for you has not gone anywhere.
Yes. Well, it doesn't depend on my feeling on this, but what is the situation? Number one, for the people in Libya, also for the many refugees, migrants that have been stranded there, the situation continues to be a nightmare. Libya is neighbor of Europe, of the European Union. Instability in Libya has direct repercussions on Europe, on Germany. Therefore, we have been very engaged in Libya. Actually, to a certain degree, it goes back to 2011 when Germany was last time in the Security Council, when on the Libya resolution we abstained. And this abstention gave us and continues to give us a certain legitimacy because of our background to get engaged. And therefore, Germany, it was not Germany, it was Germany, the Chancellor, Foreign Minister, the UN, supported us in the Berlin process, in the Berlin conference. We believe, and we continue to believe, there is no alternative to a political process. We put this Berlin political progress on track in Berlin. I mentioned that this was endorsed by 2510, where we say there has to be, we have to look at the different tracks. We have to look at the military. We have to look at the economic, at the political. We have to have a follow-up committee, and all these institutional setups were agreed upon. But this agreement so far is not reflected on the ground. And the situation today, there has been a lot of movement. You have been following how, the front line has been shifting from east to west and back. There is no military solution. And we see, this is why we had the Sanctions Committee meet. Also, we are witnessing that there is a continuation of shipments of arms into the country. We still have mercenaries there, and this is not going to lead anywhere. Therefore, we will continue as Germany to push for this political process. We are now sending also a German frigate into Irini, the EU mission that tries to protect, tries to prevent the shipments of arms. And we will not, we see how difficult it is, but we are working very hard to convince the parties that a military victory is not there. And we have to do it over and over again until we get everybody to agree on this and understand that, yes, there has to be a political solution. Well, first of all, let me pay respect to Ms. Williams, the special representative in place. She is doing a very good job there. She has been criticized. She has been criticized by Russia on some occasion, and I want really to say that we don't we reject that criticism. She does a very good job, but her mandate runs out at the end of September at the latest, and we need to have a succession. We need to have a leader for the UN there, because UN is a driving force. There have been there have been questions raised by our US partners with regard to the structure of UNSMIL. We believe that, yes, you can discuss that, but this shouldn't stop, and the US shouldn't stop the Secretary General of nominating a successor to Hassan Salameh.
Next question again to the chat. Ali Barada. Ali, please.
Thank you, Ambassador. I thank you first for the engagement with the press extensively at this very difficult time, as well as doing a great job in the Security Council. My follow-up on Nabil's question on UNIFIL, what kind of adjustments would Germany open to the mandate in UNIFIL, and how did you respond to suggestions that the US might pull out some of its financial support? Is Germany and the European countries and others are willing to cover that gap if it happens? And is there going to be any reduction of UNIFIL to make it more acceptable for your American counterparts? This is on one hand. On the other hand, my question is about Germany's standing in the world in this difficult time. Now your term in the Security Council is coming to close soon. And I wonder whether Germany will be able still to play the same effective role from outside the Security Council.
Yes. Now, although you praised me, although you praised me here with regard to me with the press with regard to the answer to your question, I have to disappoint you. You know, these are ongoing negotiations, and I don't want to go into the detail. But let me again confirm that for us, UNIFIL is very important, and we believe that it is important that UNIFIL stays there on the ground, that it fulfills the mandate, and if the Security Council agrees on an adaptation, we are happy with this. But for us, the need of UNIFIL has proved in the past. Of course, there have been incidents and etc. But overall, UNIFIL has been a stabilizing factor over time. So therefore, we really hope and we will do everything on our side that the UNIFIL mandate gets prolonged. On Germany's role, as I said at the beginning, for us, the UN is kind of the cornerstone of the international architecture. We will always support the United Nations. We are continue to be the second largest donor to the UN system. This is reflected in our work. As you know, we are in favor of a reform of the Security Council, which would allow for us to have a permanent seat. Now, this is not around the corner, but we will not lessen our engagement in New York only because this reform doesn't make progress. We'll drive this reform process, but when we are not in the Security Council, we will also make sure that we have an impact here. And I must say we are very happy also, if I may single out two of the 5 new countries, that is Ireland and Norway. We are very confident that with Ireland and Norway, we will have 2 countries that will also be on a same or similar line as we were, and will continue kind of carry the torch in the Security Council for the 2 next years.
Thank you very much. I had Lenka from the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. So Ambassador Kraft announced that President Trump might be attending the General Assembly in person. Have the Chancellor or your Foreign Minister been considering the same? And have you started to do any arrangements in that regard? Thank you.
I learned this from you, that the president the American president intends to attend the General Assembly. We have been looking at developments in the United States on COVID. We have been looking at the situation in New York. And we know what the high-level week means, and what the high-level week means when you have 190 delegations coming into the city. We believe that taking, under consideration, the prognostics for September, we believe that it doesn't really make sense to have a high-level week, to have the General Assembly where you have leaders attending. And therefore, I can confirm that there are no plans in Germany for the Chancellor or for the Foreign Minister to fly to New York and come to the General Assembly. We just believe that for respect for the COVID crisis, we have to be careful. We must not endanger people by coming with a big delegation here, and therefore we agreed to the proposal to have the leaders present their speeches in a virtual way.
Thank you very much. I get back to the chat, and I have Abdelhamid, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, and congratulations for a great job you did in July and for engaging the media. In fact, I have two questions. One question, a follow-up to my question on July 1st. What about July 1st, Israel did not go ahead with the annexation of 30% of the occupied West Bank. So how much do you think the international pressure had to do with that decision by Israel that didn't go ahead with the annexation, and especially the German visit, the foreign minister visit to Israel, as you mentioned to me on July 1st. And my second question, Mr. Ambassador, in this council, is there any dispute about the legality, about the legitimacy of the GNA, the Government of National Accord in Libya? There is no dispute about the legitimacy of this government. Why there are members of the Security Council who go ahead and support a renegade general who declared a war on the capital and committed, quote unquote, war crimes according to the discovery of those massacres. Thank you very much.
On your first question, I again don't want to speculate about the reasons for the present situation. One of the first trips the German foreign minister made after the end of the total lockdown was to Israel, because Israel is very close to Germany, and also the message that the minister, as other international partners of Israel, have made. I don't know how much impact that made in comparison, also in relation to the domestic pressure that is in the country, in the coalition, and also the pressure you have there from COVID-19, and how much also the U.S. position has. I think the result that the Israeli government did not go ahead with the annexation is so far this is a positive development, but the overarching problem, of course, as you know, is not resolved, and one has to work on it, and there have been proposals like the to revitalization of the Middle East Quartet, to get the negotiating process going. On Libya, the UN is very clear. Germany is very clear on this. We had the open debate on Libya here, and of course the representative of the Government of National Accord, the ambassador of Libya here in New York, participated and presented the the government. So there is no, and also in Security Council, there was no questioning of the legitimacy of the government in Tripolis.
Thank you very much. Next question goes to Benno Schwinghammer, DPA.
Thanks. Also, thanks, Ambassador, for doing this briefing here right now. I think this is the first time for me since 4 months or so, and it feels good. I have a broader question about Germany's time in the Security Council as it's about to run out in December, obviously. You arrived in 2017 here, and you're set to leave next year, 2021. This time, 17 till 21, also happens to be a very challenging time for people who believe in multilateralism. And I think you learned the hard way sometimes in the Security Council with ambitious projects being blocked by several veto powers. How frustrated are you over so many blocked opportunities in the last years? And also, how much of a dream job is being a UN ambassador right now?
I must say first I must say that we still have 1/6 of our time in the Security Council ahead of us. So, or even if it even is a bit more. There are still months, and we will Germany will make its contribution to the Security Council in the remaining month. When we arrived here, we knew that it's going to be challenging, but. For us, for the whole team here, it was never the question to say, okay, we have, there are so many challenges, and the period right now is not the best suited to make advances, so therefore we have to scale down on our projects. That was never a choice. As I said at the beginning, we believe in the UN, we believe in the Security Council, we believe in multilateral solutions, in rules-based solutions. So we have been pushing this, and we didn't make any compromise there. And we were then ready to see, how far do we go. We came here and we knew that the U.S. government didn't recognize that there was climate change. So we could have said, well, let's not go, on that track to have climate and security on the agenda. But we never stopped, and we said we have this on the agenda. We'll make this also one of the signature events of our second period here, and it paid off. We got. This has not been. I've not witnessed this. That you get a project of a resolution where everybody knows it's very ambitious, but you get 10 out of 15 countries that subscribe to it. That subscribe to a substantive resolution, because all these 10 countries, they are not ready to resign to say, okay, we don't have a chance because the United States doesn't recognize climate change. But they said this is such an important issue. Climate change, maybe even more than COVID-19, is the most important challenge that the world faces. And then to say we don't put this forward, this aspect of repercussion of climate change on security. So no, I must say I was actually very, very happy and proud that we got 10 countries to subscribe to it. We had a very impressive open debate, at least I found. We have a resolution project which has a lot of substance in there, and we'll keep it on the agenda. And we have formed an informal expert group that will of the Security Council, where you don't need everybody to agree to it. So we keep this group now. We establish it and keep it working, and this is there to be ready to be put back on the Security Council when the weather is a bit fairer. So there is no frustration. We fought very hard. You witnessed also the debate we had on Syria cross-border, where we went all in. We worked very hard. We tried really to do the best for the people on the ground, and we went as far as we could, and I think we got, under the circumstances, the optimal result. So one must not get frustrated because there are countries who don't get up every morning to see how they can strengthen human rights, how they can, abide by the rules-based order. But you have to work together. You have to see that you have, like on Syria cross-border, we had 13 countries united, you know. And let me use this occasion because it has been misunderstood to explain the position of the Dominican Republic that was on the cross-border also abstaining in the end with China and Russia. It was abstaining because the ambassador was just said very frustrated to have to give his vote to a resolution where it was clear that there were 500,000 children at risk. So his abstention was not joining China and Russia, but it was a protest against China and Russia that it was not the optimal solution. So, and when you have these colleagues, when you have, as I said, 13 other countries that are with you, you feel encouraged. So there's no way of being frustrated, but we have to fight on because we, as I said, we believe Germany is convinced that for the solutions in this world, you can only have multilateral solution. You have the rules-based order. You have to abide by the rules, and you have to fight for it. And you know, Germany, as I said, the second largest donor to the UN system, the largest economy in Europe. If we don't do it, who else?
I'm getting back to the chat. Margaret, Maggie, you have the floor, please. If you, maybe then I go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hi. Ambassador, could you talk a bit about the tensions, the escalating diplomatic tensions between the U.S. and China and the U.S. and Russia, and how that's impacted your work on the Council? I think perhaps maybe in Minister Maas's statement, he talks about today, he talked about the last month showed how much we need a well-functioning Security Council, but how far we are from it. Is that what he's implying? And could you just talk more about that?
Of course, you know, I can only repeat what I said before. I think what we have to do, what countries like Germany have to do, is to convince those countries who, as I said earlier, don't get up every morning to think about, you know, the functioning of the UN and the rules-based order, to convince them that it's in their interest to actually work in favor of this rules-based order. To give you an example about our American friends, on the one hand, there are certain resolutions that they just ignore, but on the other hand, they have been very much insisting on resolutions with regard to the sanctions regime on North Korea that they are implemented. And also, I must say, also with regard to Syria cross-border, we worked very closely with the United States, and I must say Ambassador Kraft was one of the driving forces also with respect to the respect for the human rights, for the humanitarian situation there. So we work very, very closely there. And what I said in the Security Council was also with the United States is don't take the UN as a menu a la carte, but understand that it's in the interest also of the United States, and the same holds true for Russia and China, to go by the international rules-based order. That in the long run, everybody is best served if everybody goes by these rules. And so this is something we have to promote every day. We have to show that the Security Council can deliver, that the UN can deliver, again, I don't see an alternative to the UN system, and therefore we have to work again and again. You know. Foreign Minister Maas has been very active here. I told you he was several times before in person and then virtually here. And he founded the Alliance for Multilateralism. And we had last September here a big event together with the French Foreign Minister Yves Le Drian. And we were surprised by how many countries joined that initiative, and by joining, underlining also their support for this multilateral and rules-based order. So we have to continue to work at this and not be frustrated if China, Russia, US are in the mood that you have described.
I've taken note of all questions. So next one would be Carrie. Carrie from Le Monde, please.
Hi, thank you very much, ambassadors, for organizing the briefing here and pushing you and your team for us, journalists, to be present in the building. I think we know how much importance it is. Maybe we need actually a bigger room to welcome more colleagues if we want to comply with the UN doctors' directives for next time. I have a question about Yemen. The Council has met twice this month about Yemen, and more particularly evoked the imminent potential environmental catastrophe about which could be caused by the safer tanker leakage and its 1.14 million oil barrels. If I'm correct, the situation was exactly the same last summer. I was not here, but that's what I read. And since last September, we hardly heard about the safer issue since the Houthis blocked the UN experts. At the beginning of the month, the Council released the press elements, and you were pushing for the Houthis to release entry permits for UN experts. You've met last Tuesday again. If I'm not wrong, you haven't heard about anything about entry permits. How to be sure the Council that this year it won't forget about the safer tanker?
Thank you. Now, coming back to your first question, let me also pay respect here to spokesperson Katrin Descharo, who has been the driving force here, that we meet back in person, that we have the press conference here. And as you say, as we said at the very beginning, also with James, I mean, it's important that we have this. So it's not always easy, but we have to, I agree with you, we have to have in-person meeting with the media, also with the Security Council. On SAFER, I think it's SAFER, safer SAFER, it's a ticking time bomb. We even had a special meeting of the Security Council concentrating just on that question. And when this was in the media, when there was attention, the Houthis said that they agreed to the inspection of the ship, and now we are almost 2.5 weeks later, and it has not been implemented. So, in the meeting we had on Yemen this week, actually here on Tuesday, we also adopted then a press elements, and we did. Again, put pressure on the Houthis. I think we just have to keep it in the media. We have to put pressure on them, and it is irresponsible what the Houthis are doing, and they are, coming back on agreements that they have made with regard to giving the permission to the UN experts to expect. So it is just irresponsible what is happening, what the Houthis are doing.
I still have 2 questions. First, Celia, and then Sato. Please, Celia, go ahead.
Thank you, Ambassador, for the briefing. It's great to be here. Could you talk a little more about the Security Council reform, and why do you think it won't happen anytime soon?
How much time do you have? Okay. No, this is why is the Security Council reform so important? Because it has to do with the credibility and the legitimacy of the Security Council. The present composition of the Security Council doesn't reflect the world of today. There is no African country has a permanent seat. There is no Latin American country in the Security Council. We hold as the second largest donor to the UN system that we have a legitimate interest. We have a group together with Brazil, with India, Japan, countries that are major contributors and regionally important countries that drive forward this. The problem is that there is an agreement on the reform, but then how to get there and then how to actually how to do it. Those countries who are very happy with the status quo are blocking the process. When you talk outside to people about the reform process and you tell them that for the last 10 years it was not possible to have text-based negotiations, so that you don't even have a text with different options on the basis of which you negotiate, that there are countries that try to prevent this, then people say, well, are you crazy? And how can this happen? And we believe that the 75th anniversary of the United Nations is an important date to actually revisit your question and to launch a new initiative, to launch a new process, to give new to put more life into this. It's not because Germany wants to sit there. It is it's because also this, but it is to repeat this because we believe in that the Security Council has to increase its legitimacy.
And last question to Sato, please.
Thank you very much for your briefing. I have two questions. One is climate change and another is North Korea. This month, your foreign minister made a proposal to set up the special representative of climate change. How is the response from the UN and the member states so far? The second question is about North Korea. The 780 committee panel experts report will coming soon, maybe early next month. But still, there are many evasion and violations, and malbehavior is prevailing. It can't be unstoppable. How do you see? What's your view on the current North Korea sanction regime, and what do you think the member states should do more? Thank you.
On climate change, the response is very, very quick. We were discussing with the 10 like-minded when we discussed our resolution, and we came to the conclusion that you, of course, need to do something in substance, but you have to have a Mr. Climate Change in the UN, climate change and security. So this is where we suggested the creation of a special representative. There is already a small cell in the Secretariat looking at the issue, but we thought that we need this. So all the 10 are in favor. And then, I mentioned before that, our friends from the United States, but also Russia and China are not all that enthusiastic about it. So this is where we're standing. On North Korea, Germany has the chair of the Sanctions Committee, and as we have on Libya. And, we were the permanent members, and so the permanent members don't really like to chair all the sanctions committees. They give this task to the elected members, but when we get that, we take this seriously. So we had a meeting of the Libya Sanctions Committee again because we see how the sanctions are violated. And I'm the chair of the North Korea Sanctions Committee, and I must say that I don't accept that there are rules, there are clear sanctions, and there are a number of violations of sanctions. So I have been following this closely for the last year and a half, and then during last week, actually, I brought as a chair of the committee, together with a number of other countries, I brought this matter into the Security Council, and we discussed it in the Security Council. We discussed one of the issues that you can also see in the report of the panel of experts. There is an oil cap. Exports to North Korea are limited to 500,000 barrels. And there are the countries that are delivering oil have to announce this, and to have to announce what they are delivering in oil or oil products. And there are basically there are a number of countries, but the most important are China and Russia. And they have been delivering, but they are indicating tons of oil products. And until now, both countries have refused to say how many barrels these are, and there is this conversion rate for 2 years has been in discussion. So I was then said this cannot go like this. I mean, you have countries that send, they send rockets into space, but they are not able to convert tons to barrels. And this is what I put into on the Security Council, and I pushed them, and we'll have expert meetings, and we'll push this that finally these sanctions are actually implemented and implemented in good faith. So what do I want to say? You know, we try to do our job as chair of the Sanctions Committee. We also look, by the way, I want to highlight this, that of course we make the exceptions for humanitarian deliveries. The humanitarian situation is very bad due to the fact that the government, instead of spending the money on the nutrition, on feeding the population, on a nuclear and missile program. But nevertheless, we are promoting and we are also contributing to humanitarian aid and as chair of the Sanctions Committee, we see to it that all exception requests for humanitarian deliveries are responded to in very, very quickly, so that then all the help gets into the country. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you.